Those on fixed incomes will have a difficult time, more difficult than it already is. We are seeing how much influence the low interest rates have had, and yet the benefits don't seem to be hitting the majority of people. A small group of individuals have seen their wealth expand a great degree, and we are now at the largest wealth gap in history with no chance to reverse course. What's really going on here? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to talk about people on fixed incomes. We're going to look at what's been happening. Of course, you have seen the price of everything rising. We've been talking a lot about lumber and other industrial commodities, but it's important to note that the price increases will be passed on to the individual. All right, so we're going to get into that today. I've got some very specific information that I wanted to give to you in the Money GPS Insights, so stay tuned for that. I'm still working out the kinks with this green screen here, so bear with me as I learn all about it. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more interactive. Let's get into the video. There's a lot to cover. Your friend and mine, Janet Yellen, had to come out and clarify her messages because it was construed and the media had to take her out of context, and maybe the market started to worry about those words, but you don't have to worry with Janet Yellen because she's always going to be there to take care of us. Here you can see Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said on Tuesday afternoon that she wasn't forecasting interest rate increases to rein in any inflation spurred by the proposed spending, and clarifying comments that ruffled financial markets a few hours earlier. Quote, "It's not something I'm predicting or recommending. If anyone appreciates the independence of the Federal Reserve, I think that person is me." And we've, of course, heard about that numerous occasions, how the independence of the Fed must be kept. And they always talk about this. I think is a little bit silly, of course, but that's what they say. Now, I just wanted to note what they were saying here. You've got this inflation, you've got it coming up in just about everywhere, but you don't have to worry because, it's only temporary. So she wanted to make that known. It's not going to result in an increase in interest rates because it's only temporary. If you look at what's been happening with the so-called recovery, it's a small group of people who have been able to really benefit from the situation. There's another group of people that it's business as usual, and there's a large group of people who simply haven't been able to see any of the benefits, and they're technically worse off because of all the inflation, because of the pickup in prices, and now most likely, if they've been moving into new homes and so on, they have incurred much more debt. But that debt is held in at very cheap interest rates, so they feel comfortable. They feel okay with that. But of course, the burden of debt goes a long, long way. Now, this article here is talking about many factors, but there's a point here about Jerome Powell that I needed to mention. The varying speeds of which the recovery has been happening matter because the Federal Reserve and the White House vowed to look beyond the aggregate figures to more broad-based data before adjusting their monetary and fiscal policies. They're going to use many more measures here. They're going to take this a little bit further. They're not going to look at the U3 unemployment rate because it's not accurate. And they mention that. And of course, that is true. But also at the same time, they're doing this because it gives them an excuse to continue these for much longer. But that affects you. And it's so important that you understand the implications of this. People today need to be aware of how all of this is affecting them. It's not about Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen specifically. It's about how this affects you, and you. It's important to see that Clorox is planning price hikes for Glad products, and many more may follow. Same thing here. Kimberly-Clark announces price increases for North American consumer products. Looking at this, these two popular peanut butters are about to skyrocket in price. You go down, this company here, Hormel, I believe it's pronounced, that's Spam, Skippy, and it goes on. Many companies under that label. Procter & Gamble will raise prices in September. You know how many smaller companies, how many products are under Procter & Gamble. Hershey's is already planning to raise prices on its 2021 seasonal holiday candy. It's going to happen. You're looking at General Mills, same thing. So we're looking at all these big conglomerates that are, basically all of those household products, all the consumables, everything is going to rise in price. Have you ever seen a situation where they bring prices down? Really? Has that really ever happened in history? It's not too common. So even if this so-called, transition period or temporary period for inflation happens to pass us by, you're going to still see the price increases on the company. The company level, they're not going to reduce it. So it's a matter of fact, you will be paying higher prices. Now, if you're on a fixed income, that puts you in a very tight spot, doesn't it? Look at this here. The 10 occupations among low-wage workers, 2018. Number of low-wage workers by select occupations. Cashiers, 1.6 million. Retail salespersons, 1.1 million. Cooks, 1 million. Waiters, waitresses, 1 million, and so on. A lot of these jobs right here were hit very hard in 2020, and now many of them have gone back to work. Now, maybe they're at 25% capacities in the restaurants. Maybe they've opened to 50%, 75, 100%, depends on the situation. But these are the type of jobs that are already on their way out in many cases. They are replacing cashiers with the self-serve checkouts. Now, Amazon has developed their technology that you can just walk out. You've got, all sorts of different things that are going in there to replace. You go to McDonald's or whatever it is, and they have that, you just work on their, iPad equivalent or tablets or whatever, type in what you need, and out comes your delivery. It's right there. They got the burger flipping robots that are starting to come in. These type of jobs, unfortunately, are simply going to be replaced by automation. There's so many different companies today that are affected by this. There's retail people, and we're talking about millions and millions and millions of jobs. So what happens here? Well, a lot of these people require social assistance in order to keep things going. That's where things get real difficult. And that's why you are seeing things like this happening. Tax refunds on $10,000 of unemployment benefits start in May. Here's who will get them first. You could read that if you're interested. I just want to show you that the government is trying to offset what's happening, but we know deep down what the problems really are. And that brings me to the Money GPS Insights. This is one section that I'm going to be expanding. This is something that I want your suggestions on. I'm trying to bring you actionable advice, very specific and related to the information that you are seeing in my daily videos. Now, I want to talk about the positives and the negatives. Now, the positives, if you want to frame it that way, is that social assistance programs are definitely on the increase. Many have talked about MMT. We are seeing different things like what they're doing in Canada, where the expansion of the social assistance programs, you're unemployed, you get $2,000 a month. Then you've got the stimulus packages, all different kinds, whether that's the stimulus checks that have gone out, you've got the PPP loans for businesses, and so many other programs that have been in place, as well as tax rebates, as I just mentioned a moment ago. So that will help out a lot of people, whether it's small business owners or whether it's individuals that simply need money just to be able to subsist. But then we have the negatives, and it is quite frankly, that prices are rising rapidly. If prices are rising and you're on a fixed income, that hits you right where it hurts. And everybody knows that. And you could see at the same time, the cost of living adjustment isn't accurate because these people are having to deal with rising prices. It's always been the case, except the fact that, they are using the measure that will not increase as the prices of all these things. We're seeing this. This is an absolute documented fact that all the prices are increasing, and yet you look at the inflation rate that they use, it just doesn't match up. So what do you do? Well, of course, that becomes the difficult part, especially when you're on a fixed income, but I want to talk about that really briefly. I'll show you that in just a second. This right here, for those who don't know, is Sam Zell, one of the biggest real estate investors there is, a billionaire. And, all along, as he mentions here in this Bloomberg interview, he would talk about gold like it's nothing, and why would you ever want to own it? And this is terrible. And he went through his career saying that, okay? And now he bought gold for the first time. Why? Because he's saying, look at what's happening with inflation. We need a hedge. And this is a guy who's a billionaire because of real estate. And he's buying gold right now. But the point is, we need to hedge our positions, and we need to understand that what we are seeing here is real, true inflation, price inflation, that is the expansion of the money supply, that is, and of course, what happens? We could enter a period of real, true deflation. Some are calling for that. I don't make the predictions, but certainly we are seeing all kinds of things happening today that are truly wacky. The quantitative easing is something that certainly could create a drop in the money velocity, but understand the stimulus coming from the US government, for instance, is massive, and the push for more could actually increase that velocity if they actually go ahead with something like an MMT, or they just continue on with these constant and never-ending programs that certainly could get that velocity up, and of course the inflation up, price inflation, and it will hit people if they're not able to keep up. Okay, that's the big deal right here. So always hedge your bets as an investor, but understand to hedge against inflation and get ready to move if you ever need to, rethink that strategy. Apparently right now, this $4.5 trillion of spending is not going to boost the deficits, is something that they're actually considering. But of course, we absolutely know what happens. You look at the US trade deficit surging already to $74 billion. $74 billion. We know it's going to get worse. They talk about the details if you're interested. Here we look at it over the past 25 years. You could see the direction. I think it is pretty obvious. Just to give you a little comparison, you could see what's been happening with Canada over the same period of time. They're always fluctuating. Of course, the total dollar value is a lot different, but you see what's happening here. Certain countries see a surplus, but the majority of countries are definitely seeing a deficit. And then we have this. Food stamps are apparently going to be increased to a significant degree, and people should be aware of that. Those who require these food stamps, of course, will see the benefit of it, but understand what we're doing here. We're increasing the price of all of these products, and then the government supports them into making those more affordable. So it's really just evening out. And I think that's a concern, because ultimately what we're doing is lifting the bar higher and higher and higher. All right, quick note. Who's that guy right there? That's right. You can actually sign up to my email list. Okay, this was something that I had years ago. I'm bringing it back now. And it's basically a way that we can get around their systems. You sign up for the insiders list, and you will be emailed 5 days a week with the daily video. So you don't have to worry, am I subscribed or not? Please understand, a lot of people that watch my videos every single day have not been subscribed to me at any point, or they've been unsubscribed. So this is one way that you can ensure that you are getting my videos every single day. So definitely check that out at themoneygps.com. If you found the video informative, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to learn about the financial system, you could do that in my 2 books. Link is in the description. And if you haven't already, you definitely want to check out this video. A lot of good detail. And that's it. I'll see you there.